National Conference on Export Promotion held in Hanoi. And later on, 2018, a crucial year for IPOs and privatization in Vietnam. Hello there, you're tuning into Bizline, our weekly economic journal on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng, and as usual, we will review some highlights in the business scene here in Vietnam. Speaking at the National Conference on Export Promotion held in Hanoi on Monday, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc asked ministers and chairmen of provincial and municipal people's committee to have a vision and focus on promoting exports. The Prime Minister also asked businesses to give priority to the removal of current shortcomings and inadequacies, as this is crucial due to protectionism and trade conflicts, as well as strict standards for agricultural products. The Vietnam Export Promotion Forum 2018 held on Tuesday also heard that Vietnam has exported 29 different products with turnover of over $1 billion to 28 global markets, and exports saw record-breaking numbers last year. Unpredictable fluctuations in global trade still poses challenges. In the coming time, agricultural and aquatic products including coffee, cocoa, pepper, rubber, as well as electronics, garments, textile and steel will be Vietnam's major exports. A number of foreign press outlets have published articles lauding Vietnam's economic achievements. The U.S. Bloomberg commented that the economy, which went into tailspin after a 2012 banking crisis and a collapse in property prices, is in robust health. A sizable middle class with discretionary purchasing power is taking shape as Vietnam, a major crude oil, coffee and footwear exporter, transforms itself into a manufacturing hub for enterprises like Samsung Electronic Company. The UK's Financial Times cited Vietnam's impressive growth figures in a number of fields, saying that the country has led Southeast Asia in attracting $6 billion in initial public offerings last year. The articles have also pointed out the shortcomings in the economy, including water shortages and environmental pollution. Officials of the Confederation of Asia-Pacific Chambers of Commerce and Industry, or CACCI, praised Vietnam's economic growth and expressed their hopes of boosting technology transfer with the country at a business forum held on Monday. 14 representatives of corporations of member countries from CACCI attended the event to connect and interact with Vietnamese enterprises. At the conference, representatives expressed their wish to cooperate and make long-term investments in textiles, chemicals, construction and tourism in Vietnam. The event helped enterprises of CACCI learn more about the investment potential of Vietnam, which has a population of 93 million people. On Tuesday, the Vietnam's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and the Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries discussed adjustments to their common vision for medium and long-term agricultural cooperation in the 2015-2019 period. Based on the medium and long-term vision signed in 2015, Japan has been establishing agricultural links in Vietnam through public and private cooperation in provinces and cities such as Lâm Đồng, Nghệ An, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. Climate change adaptation assistance is currently under consideration with a pilot project in Bến Tre province and will be expanded to the Central Highlands in the future. The two sides are committed to informing the public about specifications and standards for farm produce quality for consumption in both countries. Vietnam's food and hospitality business attended the Food and Hotel Asia 2018, which took place in Singapore from Tuesday to Friday. This year's event has attracted over 4,000 businesses from more than 70 nations and territories. Around 50,000 enterprises have registered to attend and signed contracts during the trade show. trade counselor at the Vietnamese embassy in Singapore, said that together with several businesses which has export activities and commercial presence abroad, such as TH Shu Mill and Thi Nguyen Coffee, the trade office will also be focusing on introducing small and medium-sized startups in intensive agricultural processing, especially in coffee, cocoa, cashew nut, fruit, rice and seafood. Those are some highlights in Vietnam's economic scene. Up next in our crosstalk, we get to know more about initial public offerings prospects in Vietnam through Market Insider's forecast. In recent years, initial public offering or IPOs, listing and divestment of state-owned enterprises had been sped up. Such movement has attracted capital from both domestic and foreign investors, increased high-quality goods for the securities market, and contributed to the growth of the Vietnamese security market, making the market one of the best-performing ones in Asia. Especially, recent IPOs underline a greater resolve on the part of the government to achieve its ambitious equitization plans. We will now take a look at recent IPO situation in Vietnam in the following clip.
Between mid-January and mid-February, 5 IPOs of major state-owned enterprises or SOEs raised a total of around $800 million for the government. They are the Binh Sơn Refining and Petrochemical or BSR on January the 17th, PV Oil on January the 25th, PV Power on January the 31st, the Vietnam Rubber Group on February the 2nd, and EVN Power Generation Corporation 3 or Genco 3 on February the 9th. Recent IPOs announced by private firms also contributed to the booming market. The current record is held by Vincom Retail Charge Stock Company, Vingroup's shopping mall operator, after it raised $708 million last October. But that position is likely to be overtaken by Techcombank with its $922 million IPO and Vinhomes with $1 billion. The two private firms are planning to complete IPO plans by June this year. Back in 2017, the most substantial contribution to augmenting the size of the Vietnamese stock market were Vietnam Airlines, Vietjet Air, Petrolimex, VP Bank, and Vincom Retail. The VN Index, a capitalization-weighted index of all the companies listed on Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange, ended at 1,050.26 on the last trading session of the week. The index currently stands at 70% higher than in January 2017, making the Vietnamese stock market one of the world's best performing and most attractive. On the last working day of 2017, it closed at a 10-year high of 984.24 points, earning Vietnam the nickname Asia's frontier market.
Will that trend continue for the rest of the year? And how could IPOs speed up the government privatization drive? We'll get to know more through our interview with Dr. Nguyễn Chí Hiếu, an economist in Vietnam. Let's take a look.
Thank you for joining us. By raising some $6 billion from IPOs in 2017, Vietnam has taken the lead in Southeast Asia, ahead of Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, according to Bloomberg data. So could you elaborate more on this?
Vietnamese stock market has been growing very fast in 2017. According to my information, it's about 70% and continue to grow in the first quarter of 2018, and probably is one of the fastest growing stock market in Asia. The stock market accounts for 73% of GDP, or maybe around 160 billion US dollars. So 160 billion US dollars, the size comparable to other Asian stock markets, still very small. And as we know, if the market is small, the growth rate is faster than the mature market. So the market like the stock exchange in New York or in Frankfurt, if they grow by about 5–10% per year, then is considered significant. No one is growing more than 30%, but the stock market in Vietnam grew 70% in 2017 and continue to grow probably around 20 to 30% in the first quarter of 2018.
So what are the main reasons behind such a boom in the market?
Many of these companies who went IPO, went public in 2017, has been government owned. And the government since in the last 10 years tried to get out of the private sector. And I think that government policy has contributed to the market. So they create more products in the market. And besides that, the economic indicators have been good. The growth in GDP, the inflation rate, the gold market, to the foreign exchange market, the stock market, the real estate market, and the banking sector have been in stability. Outside, all the stock markets in major markets have been growing in 2017. And all of that, the outside factors and internal factors of the Vietnamese economy contributed to the probably the positive mood of the stock market in Vietnam. That's why I believe the stock market has been growing very fast.
Recent IPOs held by Vinhomes and Techcombank also launched the nation's biggest IPOs. Also, since the beginning of the year, many state-owned enterprises launched IPOs. So what are the market expectations following this?
I think the expectation continue to be high. At the beginning of the year, we have seen some significant IPOs. One of them is the BSR, the Bình Sơn Refinery Company, and they have launched successfully IPO the first time around. Company like PVN also launched IPO very successfully. Back in 2017, yes, many of the stock coming from petroleum sectors, banking sectors, financial sector, that contributed to the diversity of the products in Vietnamese market. So I believe the most attractive company like in telecommunication, consumer products, in retail, petroleum, in energy sectors has been going out into the market, and the rest is probably less attractive. But I think the more products the market has, the more choice the investors have, and the expectation will continue to be high. There has been suggestion that the stock market in Vietnam should be upgraded from frontier market to emerging market, and I believe that also contributed to the positive mood in the stock market, and also the PE ratio. The PE ratio has been growing, and I think it continues to be growing. Last year, the PE ratio is around 20 to 1, and I think continue to grow. So the market expect that the price is escalating.
Vietnam is now on the radar of many foreign investors who bought $1 billion in stocks last year. There are also indications that institutional financial investors continue to be bullish on Vietnam, with high subscriptions for a couple of the IPOs scheduled for the coming months.
Kỳ vọng trong cái việc nâng hạng theo chuẩn của MSCI lên thị trường mới nổi, và chúng ta kỳ vọng có thể trong vòng vài năm tới, thì tuy nhiên là các cái quỹ đầu tư dài hạn thì họ thường có xu hướng là giải ngân đi trước đón đầu, cho nên là cũng là một cái yếu tố tác động tích cực đến diễn biến của thị trường.
Ở chứng khoán Việt Nam chúng ta có được cái mức sinh lời khá là cao, khoảng 30 đến 40%, tùy vào lĩnh vực ngành nghề. Kinh tế Việt Nam chúng ta vẫn được dự báo từ nay ít nhất là đến năm 2020 vẫn có được cái đà tăng trưởng khá là tốt, ở cái mức là khoảng 6,5 đến 7%. Và như vậy nó đem lại nhiều cái cơ hội làm ăn, đầu tư kinh doanh cũng như là kiếm lợi nhuận của các nhà đầu tư nước ngoài. Đặc biệt trong đó có cái thị trường cổ phiếu, thị trường trái phiếu.
Analysts have also pointed out some factors keeping investors away, which include a lack of detailed information disclosure, weak business performance, and market uncertainty.
Một trong những yếu tố ảo mà Việt Nam chúng ta cần phải khắc phục là những dấu hiệu và những hiệu ứng của đầu cơ, cho nên làm cho cái chỉ số đó nó tăng, và chúng tôi nhận định rằng nó không thể tăng hơn được như hiện nay và cũng không thể ổn định với cả nhịp tăng như hiện nay cho đến cuối năm đâu, sẽ chắc chắn là có một cái thời điểm nó xuống tương đối vào khoảng quý 3.
Despite the prosperity, are there any risks that may reverse the market development?
I believe in 2018 there are many events that may happen or may not happen in the world stage. As we know, right now at this time, President Donald Trump is preparing the summit meeting with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And those meetings may take place, may not take place, but even if it takes place, the outcome is very uncertain at this time. It will have an impact in the financial market overall, and we will see that the Dow Jones Index jump up and down in connection with that event. And I believe that the Vietnamese market at the end will be affected by this event. So there are certain political factors that will impact the market. Financially, the gold price, dollars value, and we know that the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States will increase the interest rate probably more times in 2018, and any time they raise the rate, that will impact the overall financial market in the United States and also impact the stock market. If the rates increase, that will have a pressure down on the stock price, and vice versa. If interest going down, then stock price going up. Besides that, there are a number of other unknown factors in terms of Vietnamese economies, such as the export and import. Now, so far this year, Vietnam has a trade surplus, but will that continue? We don't know. We hope that will continue, but there is no assurance. Besides that, the foreign investor coming in and they take advantage of the market situation. I believe that the majority of the stock market is still owned by foreigners, and that is good for Vietnam if more foreign investors are interested in investing in Vietnam. But it also represents a risk. Normally, those foreign investors, they invest big money in the traditional, the conventional stock market, like New York, like Nikkei, or Hong Kong, Frankfurt, Paris, and they have the major chunk of their investment in there. And when the stock market globally increase, so they have a lot of profit in their portfolio, and they use that profit to invest again in emerging market or frontier market where they have more profit than the conventional. But when the conventional markets are going down, like the stock market, like Dow Jones Index going up to 25,000 points and then go down significantly in the last 2 months, that pulled down a lot of money from the investors from this market. So they have sold their portfolio in the emerging market to make the money to compensate for the loss they have in the conventional market.
Do you have any suggestions or recommendations to investors who are considering investments into IPO firms?
With the government, I think the government should do more to upgrade the sovereign credit rating of Vietnam. As we know, with Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch ratings, the credit rating of Vietnam is still very low. It belongs to the group of non-investment grade, speculative, and even by two of these credit ratings agencies are rated highly speculative. That means the government bonds or the sovereign rating is still considered to be not recommended for investment. So with that, number one, I think Vietnam's have to upgrade the credit rating. Now, it is easy to say, but it's not easy to do because you have to do a lot more things to upgrade the rating by improving the economic indexes, employment, GDP, export, and the government functioning, a lot more factors into that kind of calculation to upgrade the rating of Vietnam. But number one, the rating of Vietnam has to be improved. And number two, the investors have to look into good stock, good shares, good company, and make sure that wherever they invest are worth the risk. Sure, there are always risks in the stock market, but the risk is measured, the risk is analyzed, and the risk should be in good control.
The Vietnam stock market was cited as the best performing market in the world in 2017 as the market ballooned by 70% within the year. So could the market maintain such a position with the help of the IPO's fever?
The stock market has been growing too fast. On the one hand, it's a good news. I welcome the positive growth rate of 70% per year. But on the other hand, I think that is out of the norms. The norm is, if in a mature market, you grow 5 to 10% per year. That is adequate. And now if you go into, let's say, 20% and 30% a year, let's go into more or less volatile area. And if you grow from 30% to 40, 60, 70%, it's going to very risky market. I don't think that the stock market, the Vietnamese stock market, will continue to grow this way this year. And number two, I would not recommend that because that's too fast. And just like an airplane, if they go fast up, they will also go down very fast as well. In the market, we have two market segments, the primary market and the secondary market. And most of the growth is attributable to the secondary market, where the investors or these speculators, they just change hands their stock. They're buying and selling, and they push up price. And the money does not go into the issuers. And if the market grow more than 50%, I would say there are a lot of speculations in there. And that's not positive to the market. So I hope this year the market will probably experience a more subtle growth but more stable.
According to the latest publicly available government figures, Vietnam only managed 26 divestments in the first 8 months of 2017 from a list of 135 companies. The target of 44 IPOs for last year was also missed, with only 38 IPOs completed by year-end, a government committee said.
Một vài bài học thành công, thật sự nó là một khích lệ đối với những doanh nghiệp còn lại. Bởi vì IPO muốn nhiều hơn nữa, muốn thành công hơn nữa, muốn mở rộng hơn nữa. Các doanh nghiệp cần phải chứng minh được cái dòng lịch sử phát triển của mình dựa trên sự minh bạch, dựa trên chất lượng, dựa trên công nghệ, dựa trên trình độ quản lý.
Experts suggested the government to enlarge the scale of the market and lure more state-owned enterprises to list shares through speeding up their equitization. Better macroeconomic conditions will also support IPOs in 2018, especially the government's efforts to equitize and privatize SOEs and bring them to the securities market.
Chúng ta cần phải thúc đẩy mạnh mẽ hơn nữa cái quá trình tái cơ cấu nền kinh tế. Trong đó cần phải hết sức lưu ý câu chuyện liên quan đến tái cơ cấu doanh nghiệp nhà nước, đặc biệt liên quan đến chuyện thoái vốn, bán chiến lược cho các cổ đông, nhất là cổ đông chiến lược nước ngoài. Thì năm vừa qua đã có một số thương vụ thành công, tôi hy vọng năm nay sẽ còn thành công nhiều hơn nữa.
Có một điều rất quan trọng là họ tăng trưởng thật, họ phát triển thật và họ có một cái lịch sử của cái sự phát triển đó là chắc chắn, minh bạch và có những nền tảng của chất lượng quản trị và ứng dụng khoa học công nghệ tốt. và được sự tín nhiệm của khách hàng và cộng đồng. Nếu chưa đủ những 5 điều mà tôi vừa nói với các bạn mà IPO thì nó là rủi ro với các doanh nghiệp.
To accelerate the privatization push, Vietnam issued Decree 126 that took effect on January the 1st to introduce a book building process, ease restrictions on strategic partnership, and tighten valuation procedures to minimize wrongdoings. Vietnam has also set up a committee to oversee around $8 billion worth of government assets in companies managed by different ministries. 2018 has been the third year in the government's macroeconomic development plan over the 2016-2020 period, with a focus on institutional reforms. So how do IPOs contribute to those efforts?
I believe so far the energy sector has been divested, telecommunication, airlines. Overall, I think the government has the plan from 2016 to 2020, and they should continue with the privatization. And I believe three sectors the government should continue to pay attention. Number one, the public investment. The government should do more in investment, but more carefully and selected good projects. Now, there are a number of bad projects, non-profitable and expensive projects, but it does not bring the result. And number two, they should balance the budget. And I believe at this time, the budget deficit is still very large.
So how does the booming equity issues in Vietnam speed up the privatization drive?
I believe that whatever the private sector can do, the government should leave it to the private sector. Even in banking, still the government owns the major chunk in the four big banks: the Agriculture Bank, Vietin Bank, Vietcom Bank, and BIDV. In the old days, all the monies come from the government, and the government has to put the money into the banks for the bank to function. But that's over. Now the banks, they can create their own money, they can solicit the money, they can raise the money on their own, and the government should go into the sectors, into something that's significant for the security of the country, the social security of the people, the infrastructure projects.
So how do recent policies from the government trigger IPOs and the privatization process?
The IPO certainly will contribute to the reform of the government. Many state-owned companies has been losing money and they have been mismanaged. So I believe the privatization help foster the economic plan of the government. Vietnam is now a part of the CPTPP. Joining the CPTPP, certainly Vietnam will open up more market, and that contribute to the economic growth and make the economy more transparent. And with the CPTPP, I would expect that more foreign investors coming to Vietnam into the stock market to help the market to grow, and at the same time, it forced Vietnam to make everything clear, more transparent in the stock market, in the capital market, in the financial market, and that is positive for Vietnam.
Thank you very much for joining our interview today.
Experts believe that the government's plan to divest from 181 state-owned enterprises and to hold IPOs for 64 firms in 2018 is overly ambitious. Nevertheless, 2018 will be a critical year in Vietnam's equitization drive. While the actual pace of IPOs and stake sales is likely to be slower than the official plans, the government will look to take advantage of the current strong investor sentiment towards Vietnam's, underlined by a stock market at a decade high and a fundamentally robust economy. And that has wrapped up this edition of BizLine. For more of our programs and updates, please log on to vtv4.vn or our YouTube channel at VTV4Go. Goodbye for now, and thanks for stopping by.